Welcome to another exciting episode of Unfiltered, probably in our prime. We're speaking of empty nesting, empty nest, full future. We have to think of these strategically. It is really not about absence, it's about capacity. Now you get to do whatever you wanted to do. So,
Mhm.
welcome to Unfiltered, proudly in our prime. We are Renee ProcenKo and Carolina Billings. Renee, you and
Well,
I are
yes,
empty nesters. We are empty
happily.
nesters. And you know what? That's the thing. I remember when Charlie first went to away to college, and a lot of people kept saying to me, "Oh, what will mom do now?" Meanwhile, mom was like ready, ready to really get started and go home with it, right? Like go big or go home. What is the myth of being an empty nester? Let's start there. What did
Yeah,
you think it was going to be, and what did it turn out to be?
great question. So well, I just became an empty nester a couple of years ago because I have two kids. So, but when the first one moved out, my curiosity was, what's it going to be like when you actually drop them off at school for that? That was the first thing was like, am I going to bawl my eyes out? I have to say, I was like, start the car. Like, bye. Have a great 4 years. Start the car. And actually, truly, we were going on a little hiking holiday right from the university to hiking in the States. So literally, let's start the car. But it felt good. Now, when my second one though, when it was final and he left, my husband had a harder time than me. I
Oh
was right.
wow,
I was right. I'm a little of a
he's
perfectionist
a
when it comes to,
softie. Yeah, I can
well,
see. I can
I
see him
like
doing that.
I like a clean house, okay? And I was
Mhm.
so tired of coming through the front door and tripping over the boats that they have on their feet. And just it's like, my goodness, I can't wait. And now when I walk upstairs and I purposely have the doors to the bedrooms open because before when they were living here, my sons, I had the doors closed so I didn't have to look at their mess. And now I look at the pretty beds made and I like it. I sound materialistic, but I just like a clean, neat home.
That is so funny. And it's interesting you said that because with my experience was um funny. It was funny because when I only have my one child, and when he first went away to school, there was that sense of, okay, now what, right? Because it was just me. Like it wasn't like, a partner and I, it was just myself. And there was just it just felt weird, like not necessarily bad, but kind of like, okay, it was weird. But then it was even weirder when he came back after after school, right? Because you kind of get
Yes.
used to, and you both grow, right? So he came back after school, and that took some adjustment because the person that left clearly was not the person that came back, and he really saw us as roommates, right?
Oh,
And well, yeah,
okay.
and that was in it took me a little while that to realize that, okay, for these many years I didn't know what he was doing. You know what I mean? Like, he could have been partying, he could have been doing whatever, and you didn't know. And so I wasn't big on like house rules or stuff like that because he turned out incredible, like incredible, in spite of the parenting that we did. He managed to just be brilliant as an adult. But it did take a while, and it did take a while to find a balance, right? To say, okay, like, yes, of course you can do, you're an adult, but y- you do have to let me know when you're coming back. You know what I mean? Like some just courtesy, really common
Courtesy, so you're not,
courtesy,
yeah.
more than anything else. And then he came back, and we did live together for an additional probably 3 to 4 years. And then he got his own place last year. So then I became an empty nester for a second time, and actually for a third time at that point. Um, and by then I was ready. I was
Mm.
really ready. Like, he was in his late 20s, and it's like, okay, fly, little one, fly.
Well, I guess
So there's
so. You had all
pardon?
those dress rehearsals. So
Well, yeah, because when we separated, he spent some time with his dad. So that was my first empty nesting, right?
yeah.
And then there was the school, and then it was like his own, starting his own life. And so I had like several dress rehearsals to get to the point where it's like, okay, you're baked. It's time for you to figure things out, fly. And I miss him like terribly, right? And it's interesting what you just said, because in prior episodes you've spoken about the ghost rooms, right? It's funny that you kept their rooms still like intact, right? And
Well,
my family did that with me for years. And it was one of the, to give you some feedback from the child's perspective. I remember when I came to Toronto, and it was always that, oh, I can always go back, right? Like my room's still there. It's like a sense of, what's the worst that can happen? That I go home again, right? And it just gives you that to succeed, because there's a safety net, right? So it's super sweet that you've kept their rooms still their rooms.
well, no, I didn't. I
Oh,
just
okay, I
I just kept them
misunderstood.
I just kept them as bedrooms.
Oh,
But and as a matter of fact, I made a very interesting mistake, which turned out to be a really good learning for me, as all mistakes are. In that, when my and I get what you said earlier. Basically, you say goodbye to your son or daughter at the university door, and they leave a child, and they come back a man or a woman. So it
yeah,
is kind
and
of
they
a
come back grown up.
they've grown up, and it's beautiful. And you're right, there is some adjusting and shifting. I mean, as a matter of fact, tomorrow night my son is coming home from Newfoundland for the week, so I'm going to be tripping over boats again at the door. But happy to do so, because once they're gone and they come back, you like the boats at the door because it's temporary, right?
It's
There's
like
an end
getting
line.
to know a new person, really, because they, at that age, every year is such a leap forward,
Yes, it's
right?
very
That,
noticeable. Yes.
yeah, is super
Mhm.
interesting to
But let me
witness
finish
and
my
to see.
story.
Yeah, so no, you don't get to finish your story.
Because what I
Go
did
ahead.
was, um, that while my oldest was away at school, um, unfortunately my mother-in-law had passed away as well in that time frame over those years, and so I always knew that I was going to inherit her bedroom set, which she lived in a condo with a massive primary bedroom. So it was like one of these 7-piece sets, right?
Oh,
She even had
wow.
the matching jewelry box on 4 legs, like, the great big tall kind. So
Wow.
when the time came to empty her condo, and who's taking the bedroom set? Well, obviously we are. Where am I going to put it? Well, we had to tear out my son's built-in, we were going to anyway, tear out his built-in sailboat bed from when he was and in is going grandma's set.
Oh,
So
wow.
when he came home, of course repainted and all that other stuff. When he came home, we were talking, and he said at one point, he made a comment that it's not his room anymore. It feels like grandma's room. And that was like
Oh,
a arrow to the heart, an arrow to the heart. And I thought, God, I didn't even think about that. And I didn't even talk with him about it beforehand. Renee just did what Renee wanted to do and didn't really think it through. But I made another mistake, and this is embarrassing. I miss right sizing specialist.
101.
Oh God. I measured the furniture, and I knew, of course, I couldn't fit all 7 pieces. So some of it we did put into storage for my next house. That's another episode. We'll put a pin in that. But I measured it. The pieces fit, but proportionately, it looked ridiculous. So every time I walked past that bedroom, I thought, "Oh my God, I've made such a cardinal mistake
Oh,
of putting
wow.
too big of
Too much.
furniture
Yeah.
into a room." So it was out of balance, and that really. So I ended up selling the whole set on Facebook. And that was a terrible learning. Anyway, but now it's got the proportionately sized pieces in it, and it's beautiful. So that's why every time I walk by, I smile because it looks like a fashion
Oh,
magazine home.
I still have Charlie's. Oh, sorry, my son's name's Charlie. I still have Charlie's room as he left it. You've been here. You know, he's still, and it's been like what, a year and change, right? So maybe I'm a little more nostalgic than you are, which is a shocker because I try to think of us with. I guess we're both a bit pragmatist, but anywho, so now is we've been sold this idea that coming into your prime 55, being an empty nester, you're kind of done, right? Like you're done, and now is a time to rest and relax and whatever, right? Like turn those rooms into something else and whatever. But the reality is this. In you and I were speaking about it not too long ago. Nowadays, people have kids at such a different stages of their life, right? That for some people, being an empty nester, you may be 40, you may be 45, you may be 55, you may not even get to be an empty nester until you're 65,
Yes.
right? So it's really I'm fascinated by that because it just happened a couple of hours ago with the stager that is coming to help us with the rebranding of the house, of my house, to sell. That just the way we're talking about it, and I don't know, when people speak of young kids, I always think I'm considerably older than them. And so I'm speaking to this lady like I am the teacher, right? The sage. And then she's like, oh, I am, like this old. And I'm just like, oh, rats, I'm like a year or two older than you. Oh,
So you
shut
were
up.
thinking you were 10 years older, but here you were only a
Correct.
year and a half, 2 years older.
And it's all because of the reference to the kids' ages, right? It's such a personal experience. So this concept that being an empty nester means you're middle age or that you're older or it's a time of decay is really a myth. It's more of an inflection point, right? Now that you're done and your kids are of payroll, like pretty much you've done paying for schooling, you're done paying for the extras, and now is your time. So how do
Absolutely.
you invest that time, that effort, that money, that everything that
Mhm.
went into caring for our children? If you've had any, there's plenty of middle-aged women that and men that have never had kids, and we'll speak to some of them because it's a completely different experience on so many points, on so many fronts, that is worth reflecting. But the cultural narrative that you arrive, especially for women, you arrive at this point that you are perhaps going through menopause, your hormones are having a field day, and you're also middle age, right, where it's like, okay, now your kids are leaving. Now there's so many people that they experience the gray divorce or the emptiness divorce, right, where they were kind of keeping it together for the kids, and now the kids are gone, and you're looking at each other going, who are you? Right, like, and so it's such an important time that I don't think we stand neutral in the middle of it all often enough to
Mhm.
consider the full domino effect of what
Mhm.
does that mean, because it's truly about identity at this
Well,
point.
that's certainly a big part of it because along with gaining extra square footage, really physical square footage, right? We're also gaining emotional square footage. And so, or the potential,
Mm,
because,
I love that.
with the kids living here, it no matter, I mean, son arriving tomorrow night, today I'm thinking I got to feed him, right? I can't,
Yeah.
because with just the two of us living here, obviously, some nights dinner is just scrambled eggs. But now with him coming home and I put mother hat on, it's like, no, he's having meat and broccoli. And right so now I'm like, oh, I got to go get broccoli. So,
So you
but
revert. So you
yeah,
revert back to mom mode, no matter how old they are.
I think so. I don't know. I'm only this age. I can't tell you, past this, but I noticed it right away. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, back to that reality. But I love that you're right. Our life isn't shrinking. Our life is actually expanding. And you know
That's
what's
right.
really expanding is our freedom. It's in that for me,
Yes.
that is what's really exciting, right? And so when we spend time thinking about that, what a lot of people realize is that, at least, clients that I work with, is that yeah, it's time for me. And I would like to start traveling, take up, something new, try. We talked about this in a previous episode, learn a different language in a different country.
Yeah,
And that
upgrade your
requires,
skills, and we're going to talk about that.
yeah, and that
These
requires
things.
money, right?
That's
And
right. Mhm.
requires money. And so, what a lot of people are faced with is, do we unlock the equity in our home, right size to a smaller home? The money's in the walls, well, hopefully not literally, but you know what I mean. And use that to fund this expansion of this new identity, this freedom that we're tasting for the first time.
Mhm.
And so yeah,
Move
that's a
your
big,
money along with your body, right? Which you're such an inspiration, and you've said a number of things. You're not the first person. Actually, I read a brilliant Gloria Vanderbilt biography that she said. If you're not into taking care of your body, take a look around you to who's going to be taking care of you. And then make sure that you stay independent for as long as possible.
yes,
Right. And I'm just like, whoa, okay. And then
yes.
when meeting you, you said, you know what, the 55 to 65, like that 10-year runway
For me, it's a
will
20-year runway.
determine but will determine your quality of life for your next 20 to 30 years or 40
Yep.
years. And it's that 10-year window that we're talking about, whether it begins at 50 or 55, right? It really depends on the individual. Back to what we said, you could be an empty nester at 45 if you start really young, which was quite common in our, Gen X and boomer years. And, there's at the time, it was not uncommon for three generations to be alive at the same time, or four generations,
Yep.
sometimes depending, culturally, right? And where I come from, if you were 25 and not married with kids, it's like, honey, this may not happen for you. Meanwhile, it's like people are now like 35 thinking, I don't know, maybe I should settle down, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so the world has changed so much. And now, thinking of changing careers, or really going after the things that you parked along the way in
Hmm.
order to grow your family, to grow your marriage, or to grow your relationship and your finances, and seek that stability, that it almost sounds counterintuitive that now we're saying, now toss it to the wind. Take all that stability and shake it.
Yeah, and that's a bit scary. But there's another element of that too that I just became aware of. When was just a couple of nights ago? We had my local son and his girlfriend over for dinner, and she's a clinician. She works in a clinic, and she was working on a new client, and this woman was in her 70s, and she was talking about the life that she was living. She was so vibrant, and when my son's girlfriend was telling me the story, she said she reminded me a lot like you. And I thought, wow, what a compliment. So I thought to myself, you can leave a legacy of stuff in your basement. I keep going back to that for your kids to clear out when you're
Mhm.
gone, right? Or you can pull up your panties and grip that, like what we were just talking about, have a bit of courage. And if there is something you want to go for, just go for it, because it's that vibrant second act that your
Right.
kids see you living, and you're going at it with fire, right?
Mhm.
That is such a learning for them.
And that is really the best legacy.
Yes.
You is to live your legacy. That is the best role modeling that you can do for your kids, for your community, for you know
Yeah.
women at large and men at large, because it's not just women.
Oh
And
God,
I
no.
was pleasantly surprised, because men do surprise me quite often positively,
I hope
that
so.
well, but you know what? They've gotten such a a bad rap lately, right?
Absolutely.
That so that's what I meant. It was like we forget if you get caught up on the on the women power, like that whole gamut, which yes, I do realize the irony that my company is called Powerful Women Today, but it's not about feminism. It's about personal empowerment and responsibility. So, anyways, he was saying, because I guess his kids are finishing university, and he was saying, like, like I'm so happy for them, for like them to finish and get started, because then it's my time.
Mhm,
I've never heard a man say that.
mhm, mhm,
Usually, those are things that women say,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
But
and I think though you're yes, you're harkening back to a stereotype of what we think of, the fella at home drinking beer, watching the baseball game, right, on a Wednesday afternoon. But I was speaking with a fellow the other day who is going to be helping you and I out on our the volunteering that we do, and he had a challenge with Thursday mornings because he donates his time to the food bank and he's running around picking up bread, for the food bank. And I thought, you know what, like there's someone who, and he's brilliant in his past job career, and there's someone who's giving back to the community, right? And now stepping forward, helping you and I in the roles that we have in the volunteering that we do. So, and half of our committee, our leadership team that we work with are men. So we're now,
yeah, right. Is
yeah.
it is such a privilege. And by the way, it's not just for the wealthy. I do realize that, we are not speaking of, you know, single like I we realize that, our demographic tends to be, professional, executive in the six figures up, and that comes with its own set of struggles. Don't think that because people have, financial stability, it doesn't, there are no struggles or pain or suffering or grief or
Absolutely.
hustle. Like is I
Well,
often
because
speak of
many of us traded a great significant amount of time for that. So there's always a trade-off.
yeah, and you know what? Even when I speak of emotional and financial independence in with Powerful Women Today, people often equate financial independence with more money. But
Mm,
really, sometimes the more money you've got, the less financial independent you are. Because
mm,
you're a partner, and I've seen that with many of my friends that still, they're sitting tall tower, highest floor of the tall tower downtown, and they've made partners, and they've done the right thing, and they've sacrificed so much. But when you're at that point, you really can't walk away. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
like that's not financial independence. That might be financial fluidity, but it's hard from being independence.
Good
Like
point.
whoever, you know what I mean? Like whoever has the most choices has the most independence. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that means being at a mid-level, management where there's several positions that you can exist within a company, opposite to being the one at the top where there's only one position like yours,
Yeah.
right? And again, you begin to compromise a lot. But
Mhm.
needless to say, in your prime, another thing that being an empty nester might give you, back to that extra time, right, is the exploring a second career.
Mm,
And we realize that retirement seems to be a moving goalpost, with economy wise, right? Before
yes.
we talked about the marketing, and we'll have somebody to really have a candid conversation with us about finance, right? But remember the marketing freedom 55, right? Well, it may not have translated into the financial vehicle that they were proposing, but certainly the mindset. When
Mhm.
you're 55, is so important that you go back and you audit what you pinned along the way.
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're not speaking as children, right? But just along the way, things that you couldn't do, perhaps because you were looking after your kids, which is brilliant, right?
Or
Now
your
it's
parents.
fashionable. Now is to be a trad wife is a luxury. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like is
Well,
so to have given to your family is is noble, is honorable. Sorry, you were
mhm.
saying?
Well, I was saying, and many of us are giving to our parents, right? We're again
Well,
sandwich
yeah,
generation,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's um, it's a lot.
So
It's a
tell
lot.
me, how is it that we're still, it feels like we've been the sandwich generation for several generations, for several decades. And
Mhm.
I don't know how that has happened, but we're still there. We're still
Well,
the Gen
I think a
Xers
good
carrying after boomers. Yeah.
yeah, I think one of the reasons is because we're living so much longer, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I
True.
have to tell you,
Very true.
I get concerned, frustrated when I see people not looking after themselves in this golden runway that we're in, 55 to 75, and we could even, you know, really the 55 to 65 is super important. And then, you know, thinking about how is that going to, you know, if things start to go sideways, my health starts to go sideways, who's going to look after me? What kind of demand am I putting on my children? Now, my kids aren't local, so I'm thinking, I don't know. I hope I outlast my
Yeah.
husband. Well, do I? Do I hope that? I don't know. You know?
I don't know, but so back to second acts and second careers. If you're thinking of switching jobs at 55 or 50 and you think it's too late, it's not. It's not too late. It just requires a different strategy. It requires a different strategy. So is it easy? No. No, the process is a lot more sophisticated. There's a lot more nuance to it. And back to my days in corporate HR, I have to tell you, it's not impossible, but it is a different game.
Hmm. I think we
Complete
should have a
different game.
whole, why don't we have a whole podcast on that one day? Because that sounds like something that would be really important to dive into.
Absolutely, especially for women, especially for women and men. Not as much for men, but for women who are either middle management or executives and are starting to feel that push from the younger generation. MBAs coming around the corner that are half your price or considerably less. That are like it's a pivotal point,
Oh,
and
and hello.
there is a lot you can do about it, but it does require complete different mindset. Complete
Well,
different mindset.
and we have AI knocking on our door. I saw this thing the other
Well,
day where we've got
yeah.
basically a 10-year window to really reimagine our workforce because right now, you know, AI can help us in the thinking realm, but when
AI
those
is still a
robots
baby, but it's maturing super
it
fast.
is. And in
Yeah.
10 years the actual physical robots will be in play, right? Right now it's just
Yeah.
the chat GPT and the
Well,
likes.
it's still no, in manufacturing. There's a lot of people think AI as this like ethereal, but it's really automation. In automation is already in place in several industries, in manufacturing, in
But I'm
several
talking
industries.
like the personal robots. I'm talking about the, you know, the, I don't know, is there a robot that's going to clean my house? Is there,
Yeah,
when I go to the retail store to buy something, is a robot picking it off the shelf instead of a
yeah,
human? Like
yeah.
that's 10 years from now, right? So
You know
that's
what? During my so I did my doctoral dissertation with AI for entrepreneurship. Right? It's digital marketing and AI, leveraging AI for entrepreneurship. And one of the questions that I was asked, so this was 3 years ago that I completed it, and one of the questions that I was asked was, "What will AI look like in 2030?"
yeah,
And it was like, you know what? Truly, we don't know.
yeah.
We don't know. right? At the speed that is moving, in the direction that is moving. There's like, we truly don't know. And when I said it, I was being genuine and authentic. And I thought, oh, there goes my dissertation, my defense, right? And you know what? They respected the fact that I understood that. And I
Mm.
understood that for entrepreneurship, especially for women. So there's lots to talk about that. But the key point that I want to make on what I just said was that I didn't start my PhD until my mid to late 40s,
Mm.
right? And most of the people that were getting their PhD at the time were in their mid to late 40s.
Mm.
So that is, and we'll talk about that. And the same with entrepreneurship. There's been a change in the game. There's no question about it. So if you want to succeed and still be a contender, right, in your prime, definitely there's things that can be done, and we're here to talk about them and to put them into play and to try them, right?
Mhm.
um However, is quite common that we think, okay, you're midlife, I'm 3 years from retirement, and then I'm just going to check out. And checking out has way more dangers than what you realize. And I don't mean to be an alarmist.
Mhm.
It's just, we're no longer just one, like our kids, like millennials, are probably 2 generations away from us. Gen Z are the equivalent of 4 generations ahead of us. Like the change that we have experienced from boomers to Gen Xers, from Gen Xers to millennials, from millennials to Gen Z, from Gen Z to Gen Alpha, like it's years. It's not just the generation, the technology, the mindset, the cultural markers. We're living in a brand new world, and I'm excited about it, but I think we have a greater chance of being stronger and succeeding as a community,
Mhm.
opposite to trying to go at it alone.
And
So
we have a greater chance of becoming dinosaurs faster. So I think we do need to be careful. Well, what a fascinating episode. We've got lots of new topics we can talk about. The career, the AI, lots coming up for Filtered Proudly in Your Prime. And what I do want our viewers to know, Carolina, is that you and I, are hosting an amazing, fully immersive event with experts, authors, vendors. And this event is called Living Your Prime. And we're having it on Saturday, May 23rd in the GTA. We're going to have lots more details coming up. So put it in your calendar now, folks, because you're not going to want
save
to
the
miss it.
date. And it is live and streamed worldwide. So it is multimedia, of course, because they'll engrave that on my tombstone. Multimedia is the way to go. And part of the proceeds from that event is all of these thought leaders having this multimedia collaboration as we begin to map what is the new prime
Yes.
in the age post pandemic, in the age of AI, in the age of technology. What does that look like in every aspect of our lives? So we're really looking forward to it. Of course, Renee's doing a brilliant job curating, all of the thought leaders that are interested. And we do offer exclusivity. So there's only one person that is going to be bringing that point of view for this event. We are going to have round tables, and we're just beginning. We're just getting started to really decode or code, because we're reimagining and having this brilliant community together. So
Yes, so we're going to have experts in all
definitely,
fields, and we look forward to seeing you there. So on that note, shall we say goodbye? And we will
yes.
see you on our next episode of Unfiltered, Proudly in Your Prime.
And until next time, thank you.